Hey, I do want to get your opinion on those numbers out in Newspoll this morning. So the Prime Minister's likeability, it's fallen through the floor on a whole bunch of different measures too. And the Prime Minister said yesterday he is the underdog when it comes into this election. What's your view on that?
Well, firstly, I think those poll numbers on character trait are really fascinating. I think the Australian public have hardened their view of Prime Minister Morrison over the last 6 months, and it's hardened in a way that will be difficult for him to shift over the next 4 or 5 months in the lead up to the election. We saw 3 years ago, Bill Shorten was the leader for 6 years for Labor. People had a view of Bill Shorten. Morrison was the new boy. He was able to create an image of the daggy dad, the high-vis guy, and people went, well, we'll give him a go. We don't really, we've never taken to Shorten. This time round, that's why this is so interesting for Labor and for Albo. All of the measures show Albo either breaking virtually even or now leading Morrison. And so it's going to be very hard for Morrison to shift the perception of himself. He is a ruthlessly good campaigner. He proved that 3 years ago, cannot be written off. But his claim to be the underdog, I think with a potential budget with billions of dollars of spending in the marginal seats, I wouldn't put him in the underdog category yet, but he'll try and run scare campaigns. Started yesterday, interest rates. I mean, for God's sake, interest rates, are 1 to 2%, 4 or 5% for mortgages, fixed mortgages down just above 2%. It'll be hard to get a serious scare campaign going.
Yeah, I mean, but how accurate can these be sometimes? Because it's people out in the suburbs, out in the regions too, who don't really take part in these polls, and they keep their answer or keep their cards close to their chest, and they vote on election day, which we've seen so many times is so different to the polling.
Look, absolutely. A lot of people still make up their mind in the last week, and even some walking up to the ballot box. What we know is that Clive Palmer's advertising had an impact at the last election. In the euphoria of the unexpected win,
and that's rolling out again.
Absolutely. Morrison camp wanted to pretend it was all about the genius of their bloke, and that was a fair call. But that advertising, which massively, I remember watching on the Sunday night, and the balance of Palmer ads are 50-50 a pox on both of you. But on that last Sunday night, those last 4 or 5 days, it switched to about 90-10, anti-Labor, anti-Shorten. So anybody who wants to pretend they know what the preferences of the Palmer camp's going to be and the final outcome's going to be until the ballot box is counted is, taking their life in their hands after last polling.
What about the issue of trust, though? I mean, is it as big as what's being made out? Because, I mean, my view when I'm talking to people is that no one trusts any politician, regardless of who it is.
Well, look, trust is important. I famously think back to when Mark Latham ran off the rails on a live radio interview, when he announced that we'd be withdrawing troops on radio with no consultation with anybody. And people felt, I can't trust you with our national security if you're just going to make up significant announcements because a talkback radio host has asked you a question. So trust can be important. But where Morrison's got a problem is that for 3 years they've watched him. They really didn't like the bushfires, the Hawaii, I don't hold the hose. Yeah. And what's coming through in the focus groups now is that people, when they say, he's not a leader, he doesn't take responsibility, and they start quoting the fire hose story and the Hawaii story. So when you see ordinary punters start to put these things together to help form their view, then you know the Prime Minister, for the first time, is going to really struggle to shift what is becoming an entrenched view on him.
The Prime Minister has experience, though. He's got experience that Anthony Albanese doesn't have. So that is going to be that'll be a huge feature, won't it?
Oh, absolutely. And this is why Morrison will want to pretend he's the underdog. But he's got, 4 years as Prime Minister. He's been Treasurer. He's got a campaign professionals behind him. He's got the budget where he will roll out the pork. If you think that last election with
Roll out
all
the
of the
pork.
sports funding and the ports. You have seen nothing yet. I'm willing to bet that Corangamite, see, they're desperate to win back, will have a 200-metre Olympic-sized pool, indoor and heated, before the end of this election campaign. That'll be the sort of ridiculous pork barrelling that he'll engage in. And as Barnaby Joyce has said, I don't care, we're just going to do it.
Yeah, and climate too. I mean, how big a role may that end up playing this time around as opposed to 3 years ago?
Look, if Morrison's smart, he will move on from the announcements. I mean, even I was shocked at the brazenness of attempting to pretend he supports renewables, pretending he supports electric vehicles. I mean, this was a bridge too far. So what he'll do on climate is he'll simply say, we've got a plan, and he'll hold it up and says, go onto our website, read about our plan. We have a plan to deal with that. He won't want to address the details. He won't want to have a conversation about whether it's a meaningful plan. He'll just do the marketing man. He'll hold up a pamphlet and say, here's the plan, go and read it. Next question.
Yeah, he knows how to win though. We've seen him do it.
He does.
Obviously.
Absolutely. And if Labor feels remotely like it's in the bag, or remotely that they can just slide on into an election victory, they're fooling themselves, and they will get hammered on the night.
Yeah. All right, Stephen Conroy, good to chat. We'll talk to you soon.